Welcome back to Construction Executives Live. I'm your host, Jeremy Owens, owner and founder of U.S. Construction Zone and Three Generations Improvements in Northern California. Hey, for those who are affected by the fire down in Southern California, our thoughts and prayers are with you right now. It feels like every month we do this show, there's some sort of tragedy going on. If it's not a hurricane or a tornado or fires. So I guess this is our life, but I just want to let everyone know that thoughts and prayers with them. I have some family that have been evacuated down there, so it's just a wild time to be in California right now, to say the least. So with that being said, I guess we all got to get back to work too. Happy New Year to you. This is a new year, new goals, new insights, and I'm happy to have Dylan on the show today to talk a little about something new. And employees, we always struggle with employees and retention and hiring and firing and finding the right people for our team. And maybe this is the year that you want to expand, you want to get different, you have lofty goals, you're going to need some good people to do that. So this is a good show for you. Also looking for some new speakers this year. I haven't filled out my calendar completely yet. If you are a speaker or a podcaster and you have something to say, please feel free to reach out to me, Jeremy, at usconstructionzone.com. I also put a link to the podcast forum on the LinkedIn comments. Feel free to fill out that application, and that comes to me as well. And we can set up a time to meet and just chat about what you're interested in. I'm looking for people who have something to say, passionate about something, fix something in their business, in their industry. I'm not really looking for, sales tips and tricks or your product or service. There's already podcasts that do a great at that. I'm looking at a little bit peeking behind the curtain of a person, individual, or process. So if that's you, please reach out. We are sponsored by the great team at build12.com. Check out what they got going on there. I believe Dylan knows less over there at Build 12 and the Contractor Huddle brands. He's a coach. He's got lots of tools surrounding his business to help him succeed in his contracting business, and he's willing to share that with you. So please reach out to him and find out how to create that win-win with your business. Today's show, don't hire losers, building a winning team in remodeling. We're going to discover the secrets to creating a high-performing remodeling company by focusing on strategic hiring and employee development. Learn how prioritizing your team's success leads to exceptional customer experiences, reduced turnover, and filling positions to cultivating powerful, motivated workforce that drives your company's growth and reputation. Dylan Milroy is a trusted advisor and leader known for his education-based sales approach and hands-on experience. As the owner-operator of Better Basements and Waterproofing, Dylan has achieved what few in his industry can. He's built not only a thriving business, but a top-notch culture that delights customers and consistently is earning their company 5-star reviews. He has mastered the creation of a steady lead engine through digital marketing, fueling the success of his home services business. Please help me welcome Dylan Milroy. Dylan, thank you for being here.
Thanks, man. Quite the intro.
Yeah.
Mouthful.
Yeah. I mean, I tell this to my family all the time. I'm like, kids, if I just can you just pipe in my intro to the family like every couple of weeks just so you don't think I'm such a dipshit. You know what I mean? They're
if
like,
only
nah, I'm
we
not
were all if
interested.
only we were all cool enough and entertaining enough to be like Rogan and just be talking and no intro and
Yeah. Yeah, that's another level, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got going in construction.
What my first job's kind of in high school and stuff. My dad uh, grew up in a small town in Kansas, sort of thing. So and we live on the West Coast now in Portland. So I'm born and raised Wilsonville, Oregon. Just kind of guys who just always do their own things. I joined the Marines, and when I was in the Marines, I was working on helicopters. Got out and went back into construction. I was working on aircraft for a little bit, but then commercial electrician, and then into high-end remodel design, project management, and sort of just kind of a carpenter on hand sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, And then when I moved back up to Portland, when we got married, when I got married, got moved back up to Portland, and kind of jumped right back into it. And my best friend, who's the co-owner, he's kind of a silent partner, but he's heavily involved. He's a fuel to a lot of the fire. He called me up one day. He makes his living in real estate, residential real estate, and he kind of went over this bid that he had to waterproof a crawl space, and he's like, "What do you think about that?" And it was his price. I was like, "Yeah, man, it sounds like you're getting ripped off." He's like, "Well, I get like a dozen of these every week. Every house I sell needs this.
Wow.
Um, and if I wanted to book it, it'd be 3 months out. So you want to start a business doing this?" And I was like, I guess, and I thought
Yeah.
about it for the weekend, and literally 2 weeks later, we had kind of started.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
The
it was.
rest is history. I mean, thank you for your service in the Marines. So tell me a little bit about, that experience for you, and how are you drawing on that as a business owner now?
Yeah, well, you talked about Les in the Build 12 contractor huddle. It's funny
Yeah,
is I think it was a couple months ago. We were in. He's my business coach, and I do use Build 12 as a CRM. It's great, and Les is great.
excellent.
And he kind of busts my balls because sometimes he's like, how micro do you want to get? It's like, because in the military, you learn everything is step by step,
Right.
because half of us are idiots, and you have to let one of us idiots do it. So that's so my SOPs and stuff probably get a little excessive, or a little do this, do that, or like how to move from one point to the other. I have a tendency to get a little excessive. So I definitely draw on that.
Well, I think it's a good thing, for businesses who want to replace themselves, right? Where, maybe eventually you take a role where you're not quite as involved, then you already have those systems in place. I mean, military or not, yeah, I mean, you might need it, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And being able to hand it off to people, you should be, anytime I feel like I'm using instinct, I try to write it down. I try to figure out what it is the
Yeah.
SOP could be, because there really isn't much instinct in what we
Right.
do.
Right, for sure.
I don't care what you think.
Well, in talking to Les and some other people about you, that they describe you as a motivated professional and you don't do anything half-heartedly. So where did you get that drive from? Is that something you think you were born with, or did you learn that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, just being poor sucks. And I love working. I really like working. I like working a lot. So anyone listening to this likes working.
Yeah,
And I like surrounding myself. I really love surrounding myself with people who, I try to be the stupidest person in the room, and also, like, the poorest person in the room. Just try to absorb everything at all times. And entrepreneurship and construction in general is great for characters like us, because it's just never done.
right,
It's never good enough. You never have enough leads. Uh,
right.
it's just never ending.
Yeah.
And once you embrace it, once you realize that, you're like, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's something really cool about our industry in that there's no day that's the same. And that's a blessing and a curse, right? The curse part is like you have all these ideas about what you're gonna do and how productive you're gonna be that day. And then there's this fire and there's this call and there's this, and then before you know it, you're like, I didn't get anything done I wanted to get done. But it's kind of fun too because it keeps you on your toes and nothing's the same. Yeah, I never hit the pillow at night going like that was the same as the day prior. It was just always so different. I mean, it also can be challenging that way too because, like you said, you're never done. My inbox is never gone. It
Yeah,
seems like it's the same level, if
yeah.
not bigger, every day, and I'm like, that's kind of stressful too because the work is never ending.
Well, and just like any entrepreneur in their 30s, I really look up to Alex Hermosi, and he always says,
Mm,
you cannot lose if you do not quit. And it's like, man, you anytime you want it, anytime you want to, I just kind of sit there and I think about it. I'm like, all right, you could throw in the towel, you could do this, you do that, but that's losing. And dude, losing is way worse. Way worse. The feeling is way more horrible than how good winning is.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna suck it up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about Les. I guess him being a mentor to both of us. What kind of got you involved with him? How did you kind of reach out to him? Was there a yearning for needing to get to the next level with your business? And also, did you have other mentors in your life that have kind of helped kind of push you along?
Yeah, absolutely. I the benefit of Better Basements was as we started it, uh, and it was our goal was to grow it huge. So we hired an employee like right away. I
Hmm.
think we had 3 employees probably within a couple months,
Hmm.
if not a month. And when you're building to grow, and you're built and you are focused on strategy, you're just always looking for some sort of cheat, some sort of boost in the future, and that's kind of where coaching landed. Um, Les was actually introduced to me by another coach I had for some for some real estate stuff, and it just so happened to be introduced to us while we were looking for a coach and something else. It was very important to me that someone had already taken someone to where I want to go and gone there themselves. And which he's done that. I mean, look at his LinkedIn. The guy's a monster.
Right.
Um, so I don't need to say that. But the most important thing is that he's still married. His kids still talk to him and work with him.
Mm.
So he's got that character. He's got that, and he's a Christian. So it had to be. I wanted the whole gamut
Yeah.
because it's like it's like once you make it, once you get big, once you get rich, like okay, then what? So
Yeah.
you need to be coached by someone who also has a lifestyle that you aspire to have. And yeah, absolutely, it's one of our vision and values is always seeking, is just like we will always have someone. So most of the guys in our company go to the same church. My business partner is a member of the same church, so having pastoral care, having you know always surrounded by someone, always looking to refine yourself is part of our values.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, so wise to be trying to find the life person too, right? I think we get kind of bogged down with what we want in our businesses, and there's a lot of consultants out there. There's a lot of coaches and things like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
There, I mean,
Oh
a
my
lot,
god. It
right?
never stops. Dude, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
But
I mean, there's a lot.
you do need one.
Yeah,
I've got friends who are way further along than me, and it's dumbfounding that they don't
yeah.
have a coach and they just refuse. Oh, it's a scam. So this I'm like, correct. Most of them are, but
Mhm.
but not all of them are.
Right.
And the good ones are worth their weight in gold. And you get into these coaching groups like the Contractor Huddle or Slack. I just Slack something out today. You have an idea, type it out really quick. Questions: has anyone done this or that? Uh, and you get responses. And normally you might lose 6 months going down some harebrained idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a cheat code, big time.
Yeah, totally. And I'm all for networking community. Obviously, this is kind of what I do as for fun. So I can't say enough about going to that conference or rubbing shoulders with people who are in a similar spot. And we're a very open industry. We're willing to share our secrets. Typically, we don't compete with people unless they're in our regional area. So it makes it
Yep.
a little bit more open than I think a tech industry where it's like everything's kind of a secret. We're very open, so
Yep.
don't hesitate if you're listening to this. Don't hesitate to reach out to people around you, and we can. Dylan and I both can help you find some. Like I said, we're approached all the time.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, cool. Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about before we get into some of the employee stuff. We're right back to pre-COVID levels with everything right now. In terms of the economy, leads, a lot of times people's sales have kind of maybe taken a dip, or it's just you have to get more creative to find that lead that used to be like drinking out of a fire hose. now you're kind of going back to, all right, so what do we need to do to steady this lead flow again? What have you guys found working for you?
Yeah. So people usually ask, because we have, I would say, especially for how old our business is, our lead flow is pretty impressive. Um, and people usually ask what we do, and I just say yes. It's like everything. Um, you have to do everything, and you have to track everything. You have to be really honest about your ROIs. So we, just like anyone else who advertises heavily, most of our leads do come from, besides referral sources, most of our leads do come from Google campaigns. But you know we do everything from Bing social media marketing to TV advertising. We've done radio. Uh, if there's some outside of a billboard, I've tried it and I've
Mm-hmm.
tracked it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be willing to. And I think this is stolen from Les actually. Is that there's two kinds of advertising you're doing and advertising that you're pausing. It's so like right now we turned off Yelp and Angie, the last 3 months because I track them so closely. You can see the
Yeah.
ROI, and you're just like, well, this is junk right now, and you just
Right.
pause
Right.
it. But that is probably unique. Is that most contractors? Oh, I'm never doing that. I'm never doing this. And yeah, you're right. Those lead flows, guess what? They suck, but
Yeah.
they do have an ROI. I made a lot of money on them before.
Right.
So, and probably in a couple of weeks, I'll probably turn them back on and see how it's going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very similar, man. I do the same thing. We track all our leads. We know our cost per lead, cost per sale. And I do the same toggling with Yelp and Angie both. Those two tend to be a lot more tire kickers.
Yep.
There's a lot of eyeballs on those apps. So,
Yep.
so it's hard to ignore the volume, but it's just the return, like you said, the amount of wasted time there can be a lot. So I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, and you have to if you're doing, we do cash flow forecasting, 12-month budgeting, the works. And if you have your formulas and what your cost per lead needs to be to reach your goals, and all I do is once it gets over that, once Angie and Yelp get over that, I just turn them off.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot to track every lead, but once you have the systems in place, it's all pretty. I mean, it's my full-time job for sure, but it's
Yeah.
not like I'm up in the middle of the night tracing phone numbers and figuring out where they came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
We bought a couple dozen phone numbers and they're all attached to certain things. They call through the CRM, and then they get a values. The customers get values attached to them based on the bids. The salesmen attach. So it's like it's pretty good.
Mhm.
And you get, and there's a certain point I would say, like, I don't know. I don't want to attach a number to it, but probably less than $100,000 ad spend, it might not be worth it. But at some point, you start realizing that you're just burning cash, and not only are you burning cash, you're leaving money on the table, which is even worse,
Yeah. Yeah.
big time.
I think that's the number one issue I see, especially with the remodeling sector, is burning leads. Like you'll get a lead, call it once, whatever, put it away, and it's like that's gold, man. That's straight $500 floating around your desk. You gotta value that thing, and that's really what Build 12 has helped me with, is like create those automations, create things that have it be working for you as opposed to you putting in all the effort. I think we're in a similar spot where we both run marketing for our team, so it can be a lot, and if you don't have automations to help you out, yeah, it's a difficult task.
Yeah, and someone has to. It was probably 6 weeks or so, or a couple months ago, with Les. So I said, "Hey, this advertising budget next year is big. It's really big. Someone needs to manage it. I think I need a CMO." And he's like,
Yeah,
"Absolutely."
yeah.
And I was like, "So do you know anyone?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm looking at him." He's like, "Yeah, you're born for it." I was like, "All right."
Well, shit.
So
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I have a marketing degree and background, so it's like it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to hire it out, but it's a
totally.
big chunk of time though.
Yeah.
Dang, especially this year, like I said, because we're at pre-COVID levels, you're gonna have to spend more to make more, and you can't be afraid to do it. Like Les said, you're basically doing everything. You
It,
know.
it, well, and here's the thing: is that advertising works. It's the conversations like I don't really entertain anymore. It's just like people, oh, does it even work? Is that you just like just stop it. Like
Yeah.
it works. Give me a break. Like you could spend $1 million on advertising. You might only make 1,000,001, but it does work.
Right. I think there's just a general people are afraid to spend that much money, and for a lot of them, you get into pay per click, dude. You're burning some cash.
Yeah,
You might as well start the fire, but I mean, it'll come back to you. You just got to stick with it.
for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
cool. Well, I wanted to get into this employee topic, so I guess I wanted to start from the beginning. So, when did you guys decide to make that switch to more of an employee focused company?
You know, well, I guess my philosophy was always there, but kind of like practically on our website and our branding more recently. There's kind of to me, I kind of see this like this lifestyle this timeline of a brand where kind of like the story brand thing is really popular, and this the customer journey and all this stuff. And
Yeah,
we did that, and we had our website, our branding all towards that, and it was great. But it does feel kind of amateur. At some point, you need to present yourself as you have to remember that. And sometimes I remind my salesmen, like they're doing follow-ups and stuff like that. You'd be like, hey, dude, they called us. They invited you into their home.
right.
I don't care if you feel like you're being annoying. Like, like
Yeah,
they shouldn't have called
yeah.
you. They can hit unsubscribe, and until they do, you will call them and you will make
Right,
a sale.
right.
But when it's always the customer journey, heavy customer journey, you just kind of it just always kind of feels like you're a bother. So now, so I was looking at my competitors, and you're seeing our two largest competitors, and you're kind of looking at their website. I'm thinking like, okay, so it's like the owner is there, and he's like, we do this and that, we're great. You should be
Right.
so honored to call us. And you're like, all right, I don't really want that, and I also don't want to tell the customer to kick rocks. Um, so when we kind of really focused on our vision and values, it kind of fell in place because it's kind of a cheat code where you say you're focusing on employees, which we are, um, and most of your customers are everyone's an employee in some level, so it works. They appreciate it. They
Mhm,
see that you're taking care of them. You advertise that you're taking good care of them, which we do. Uh,
mhm.
and then you have guys who take exceptional care of the employees because they love their job and they love where they're at.
Right.
So it's actually customer focused by being employee focused.
Yeah.
And when I was in kind of like more luxury construction in San Diego, it was so customer focused, super white glove, very nice firm. And to this day, some of the most beautiful projects I've ever been a part of. Really proud of it, but it was always at the expense of someone,
Mm,
like
mhm.
going to warranty calls that are like, they're just like demoralizing, like LED light bulb switches. Well, you said they would be they would last 10 years. It's 8.5, literally that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you like tell your boss, like, dude, are we really doing this? He was like, yeah, he spent $1 million on a kitchen. You're doing it. You're like, okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that can be rough, that's for sure. I mean, were you guys worried that it was gonna, affect the customer experience, or were you just so confident that, hey, you hire top-notch employees that they're gonna take care of the customers too?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of my personality, kind of take it or leave it sort of thing, anyways. So yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of pushback from people on the outside, a little bit of like eye raising, and even in our mastermind group, kind of got in a tussle a couple of months ago because I sent a screenshot of an email where I thought a customer was being ridiculous because they were, and they
Yeah.
were asking questions. What drives me crazy is you ask questions that are black and white in the bid, and they've read the bid, and it just kind of feels like a gotcha moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so politely you'll be like, yeah, if you just reference your bid, it's in there, sort of thing, right? And I would say that is employee focused. You're setting the tone for the relationship.
Yeah.
If the salesman, if the lady answering the phone, everyone from the get go, everything is, oh yes, sir, oh absolutely, sir. Like that sets the tone forever. And you're marrying this customer. In our world, 20-year warranty. So like I have to like bow down for 20 years,
Right.
just because you don't want to tell them, that's in your estimate. Like, why
Yeah.
you like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does. I mean, I think it wears, and you're dealing with, tradesmen that might not be, they're not necessarily, yes, they're in customer service, but they might not be like, uh, at some point they didn't sign up for
Right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Not quite as tactful with that kind of thing. I mean, I still think that it's almost as good as a sale is saying no to someone who has those red flags in the beginning, right? I mean, it's one of the best things. It's one of the most freeing things that you could do. And if you haven't done it, if you're listening to this, do it. And like when you see those red flags, when they're sending that email with 25 questions, when they're trying to get those gotcha moments or add warranties or this or that, just
Yeah,
say, we're not a good fit and leave it at that. And you
yeah.
will be shocked at how lovely that feels.
And I used to do I'll give them the I don't want to do it price, but then they accept it. And I've had we've had horrible situations.
Right.
I'm still dealing with a lady. We did her house like 2.5 years ago, and it's just totally
Right.
absurd. And I'm just like, dude, I did not charge her. And it was just like, I should have
Yeah.
just told her no. But
Yeah. Because you,
that's employee focused,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's because I after they sign the contract, it's out of the salesman's hands. But like if you're setting the tone for it,
Hmm.
then it's employee focused, which is customer focused. Because now they're not going to the next job being a jerk. They're
Yeah.
not being frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, that employee focus obviously has a huge overlap with the customer advocate focus, right? I mean,
Oh,
they're,
for
they're
sure.
one and the same in a lot of ways.
They really are. It's kind
Yeah.
of it's I don't want to say it's a gimmick, but it's just kind of a play on words where,
Hmm.
um, it does show itself practically, but generally it shows itself practically kind of at the beginning,
Right.
of the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah. And why, there's obvious reasons, but, why to you is being a customer advocate important, especially in the service-based businesses that we're in?
Well, waterproofing and foundation repair is like as slimy as it gets.
Uh,
So yeah, I mean, it's circling a lot of these I mean, they're circling drains on like morally questionable.
right.
Uh, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like you either bite your tongue and you do right by your customers, which we will do, and which I did for a long time. But you're like, okay, at some point, you've created yourself an authority figure. You've made yourself the expert. So at some point, you have to do something. You have to say something.
Sure.
That's just not doing anything or not like kind of bringing a light to it in some level is also wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's really how that started.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So getting to the kind of like the interview process for you guys, I mean, it starts with your culture. And so how did you guys develop that culture? Do you guys have,
Yeah.
visions, and how do you guys have it in-house? How does that look and feel in-house? And then how do you take that to the first start, which I guess is creating an ad for a job, right?
Yeah, so super practically, luckily I'm a pretty decent writer, pretty decent at, putting voice in my writing. A lot of these, uh, you need to spend more time. I realized how important it was to spend time on creating a job post just because how many responses we were getting, and people being amazed by it, especially for work as hard as waterproofing. I mean, there are very few construction jobs. They exist, I'm sure, and someone I'm sure will say something. There are very few construction jobs that are as hard as crawl space waterproofing and basement waterproofing. You have guys digging holes on their sides wearing a respirator, sitting in water. it's it's like I used to when I was doing the labor with them. I remember I had the same joke every time. A new guy would be down there being a horrible one, and I'd look at him and be like, "You should have gone to college, huh?" like, like, and he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, me too." like, dude, it's rough.
Yeah,
Yeah. So spending a lot of time writing your job posts and and painting vision for them, and making sure that you know obviously you have to have your vision and values first, and you have to know where at
right,
least some idea where the company is going. I mean, that's a given.
right,
But making sharing how they will fit into that, I think goes a long way. People want to like you want to think that guys who are in construction, they don't think like that, but hey man, they have families too. They don't want to the people that we want to hire, they don't want to job hop. So when they're reading that and that like strikes a chord, then those are the guys that you want those guys that strike a chord.
yeah,
Um, so our super practically is we give a very brief summary of where we're at and our growth, and a very brief summary of where we're going and how they fit into that.
mhm,
And then you know and then we make it super clear that it's not for everyone. It's basic sales.
yeah,
Talk them out of it in it. And then we even share raise structures, like so where we start and where you finish, and practical timelines for that.
yeah,
Um, so that's one of the big reasons why I think we get so many applications. And obviously it's dependent on our market. Maybe the Portland market has a high degree of labor. I don't know, but what
yeah.
I do know is that we have some pretty amazing returns on just, and we only use Indeed now. I
Okay,
don't use anything else anymore. I've tried a lot of other things. Indeed seems to be where everyone's at
okay,
for
cool. I
us.
mean, you talked a little bit about your Christian faith, and I'm curious how that kind of, because your team is as well, how that kind of lend a hand to your guys' culture and how you guys go about your business. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a big part of your culture, but kind of going back to what you said about your industry can be a little bit slimy, is is doing right by the customers, right? Making sure that you're always leading from a place of integrity. And obviously that'll come back to you. It might not come back to you with the highest sales or the best job, but you're doing when you hit the pillow at night, you don't have that, like that regret of like pulling one over on somebody, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's very clear in scripture, that Christians need to be, we need to strive to be the best. We need to have a high degree of excellence. And we also, it's no, it's not like I'm being a theological whiz to say we can't be taking advantage of people to get a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Um, so, and sometimes sometimes it's as simple as, telling a customer like, man, I had multiple bids last month where you're going in and someone in the Portland market knows who I'm talking about. A competitor gone in there, tell them their house is sinking, right? And they need to do helicals, $60,000 worth of foundation work.
Yeah.
And I'm walking and I'm looking and I'm like, I literally don't even see a foundation crack. Like houses, and I'm telling the customer, I'm like, yeah, it is impossible for a house to sink without cracks unless the whole thing is sinking individually at the same
Perfectly at the
exact
same
time.
rate.
Yeah, like there has to be something. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, he was talking about this crack right here, talking literally hair, not even a hairline.
Yeah.
And I told her, hey, I could pour you a new foundation tomorrow. That would be there in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know? And then she's like, now they're still so scared that they still want to do it. Like she's literally throwing money at me. And I'm like, no, like this.
Right.
So those kind of things are not uncommon. I guess I
Oh,
would say
yeah.
probably literally three times a month, 4 times a month, some sort of thing like that.
Yeah.
Um, and and then I also think that it's part of it was a larger part of our hiring at the beginning, just because I just didn't have the skill set to manage culture like I do now. So it was like, okay, I know I have to hire young men from the church, or
Yeah.
else this is going to get out of control.
Right.
And
Right.
now it's not necessarily like that. We do happen to have a lot of Christians from our church,
Yeah.
but um, if you have that base, and guess what? Those guys are all still here, and
Mhm.
that made a huge difference. So
Right.
now they're like my culture police, you know,
Mhm.
and it's great. It kind of because they don't want to be around losers either. They don't want to be around guys who are gawking at girls on the corner while they're at a stoplight. You know, they're just like,
Right.
come on, man.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, it's a good lead into my next question, which is how do you police that quality control of your culture? And obviously, having a good firm foundation that doesn't have a bunch of cracks, Mrs. Smith. That when you have those people policing it, that's got to be a big start for making sure that you keep your quality control, right?
Yeah, I stopped making like I stopped making excuses, for guys. We had, we all go through this phase where we're like kind of just like the customer, you shouldn't have taken the job. You have these guys, you shouldn't have hired, and you knew from the beginning, and you
Mm.
ignore things like, oh man, but he shows up on time or he works really hard, and you're just like, at, at some point, you're like, at what cost? And the cool thing is that you know you, the best thing about being a business owner is that you kind of get to create your own world, right? um, you know Talking about faith, the Lord has entrusted you with this like amazing gift. You might not want to ruin it with guys who are willing to do good work but also ruin your reputation and brand.
Right, right, right.
So the way I police it is mostly at the beginning. Is in that hiring process. So is filtering through guys very strictly, asking them very direct questions about where they want to go, where they want to this. So it's like, it's common in construction. You ask someone like, hey, so where do you see yourself? Where You ask them a question about their career, and they just kind of like, I don't know, man, it's just a job. You're like, okay, well, this job ain't for you then. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I spend a lot of time, and because and I don't hire my friends, but I do only hire guys who could be my friends. And because you do that, you find yourself, you want to spend time with them. You want to go out of your way to make sure that when you're getting a job update, when you're getting a call, you know, you don't need it to be all business. You can talk to them.
Yeah,
Uh, you can. It's pretty easy.
yeah.
Uh, and then another practical ways is that just like any home service business who has multiple trucks, and if you're not doing this, you should. We do random spot checks, ask customers uh, how it was from start to finish, and no surprise, it's always great.
Yeah.
um, and then also empowering those guys who have been there. You have your core trusted guys, and you want that group to always be building.
Mhm.
So I always ask constantly. We hired 3 guys last week, uh, 2 guys, and a new girl to answer more phones. But I asked those guys like, hey, like, how's he doing? Is he going to fit in? What do you think? Like, is he following the job site rules and all this kind of stuff? And you got to empower those people, to set their own culture too, because it's their
Yeah.
job site. It's not my job site.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So in the ad, I mean, obviously you're trying to get some things in that ad that would point to people similar to you guys, right? So you're
Yeah,
trying to, some hooks and some things that are about, longevity there and about
yeah.
them being able to expand. This is not just a job, all those things which are make tons of sense. How do you guys go from that? How do you know who you're going to interview at that point? Or do you just like make sure you talk to everybody? Is it kind of a feel? Like, do you have a checklist? Or you like,
No feels. We do. Uh, and Indeed, you can ask questions. You make them type out questions. I always ask like 4 or 5 questions to answers I want. If you don't answer those questions, I'm not. You automatically are disqualified. Most people don't answer those questions. So if we get 100, 200 applicants, I bet you 30 of them will answer the question. So that does a lot of them. Because guys are just going through there and they're just applying, applying for jobs.
yeah,
And in those questions, I get a little, I tighten it down even more. Um, we used to hire guys who like didn't have like labor experience. I don't do that anymore. You have to have it's a this is the worst first hard job you could get.
Yeah.
Like, so I want, even if you tell me that you did like you do landscaping or something like that for your grandparents, like something, you have to show that you had a miserable job for a year to
Yeah.
something. Right. So one of our questions is like, what kind of labor experience have you had? I asked them the city they live in, things like that. The city they live in, I think, is kind of one of my like little is kind of one of our keys, is because I realized like I had guys, wanting to drive from a long way, and you're just like, man, you're going to have a 40-minute commute to
Yeah.
go dig a hole under some lady's house. Like,
Yeah.
and you're just like, you think you want that, but you don't want that. So I try to act in their best interest. And it's
Right.
like, because it's gonna wear them down. So we try our best to really only hire. So we have almost everyone lives in Wilsonville or Oregon City, which is where we're at. And it's because of that. And it's because of, obviously hiring from our church and other reasons like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, we're pretty restrictive in where you live. I don't let guys have long commutes. And, people, oh, I really want to work there because I'm like, sorry, dude. It's like, you're going to hate me in 6 months.
Yeah. 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 I mean, do you think there's something like unique about your interview process? So once you kind of talk to them on the phone, I mean, obviously their application looks pretty good. They've answered the
Yep.
questions. Then you have them come in. Is it just you that's looking? Do you guys have a panel? How do you guys go through the interview process?
Yeah. So you have to answer all the questions.
Okay.
Um, I don't care, I don't care if there's spelling errors. I'm going to say I can't spell either, so whatever. And then yeah, I do. I rank them very practically on a piece of paper, and then I call them. And then if you don't answer, that's fine. You might be at work, so
Yeah.
I text you and leave a voicemail. Um, it depends on kind of like, I guess it kind of depends. Maybe there's a little instinct in here, but it's like on how quickly you respond. But these lists get narrowed down pretty quickly, and then you realize that now you're only talking to like some pretty top tier candidates. So yeah,
Right.
when I talk to someone on the phone, um, I just I just ask them. Most people uh, like to talk about themselves, so you just ask them, hey, so you're looking for some work, and usually people just talk, and then you just ask them some question about their jobs, kind of verify, ask, and then I always ask like what they like. So I don't ever, it's kind of a sales trick too, you don't ask what they didn't like about someone, you ask, oh, what did you like about it,
Yeah.
right? And they never, it's always negative. So so then you ask like, hey, what did you like about working here or there, right? And usually if it's a positive response, that's someone I want to work with. Yeah, he was a good guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but he just couldn't afford me to give raises. I understand that. So I try to really give them an opportunity to shoot themselves in the foot by like kind of, I don't want a gossiper. I don't want a guy who's just sitting here talking bad about all his bosses and stuff like that.
Right. 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 Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so we get, I think the last job posting in a day, we had, 160 applicants or so. I think I narrowed it down to about 30 guys based off their questions. And then I probably called 15. And
Okay.
then of those 15 on the phone, I had in-person interviews with 6 or 7. And of those 6 or 7, 5 showed up. And of those 5, we offered 2 jobs. So if you are like, if you're hunting, if your buy box, your customer base is this ideal guy, then talk to that ideal guy and just find him, and he's there.
Mm.
And I don't think you have to make very many like I don't think you have to make very many excuses when you approach it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, do you talk about, so once you, I guess, once you hire them, are they already asking about advancement, or are you upfront about advancement? And then like kind of what does that look like once they're in house? Like how do they move from the low end to the up the ladder?
Yeah. This is probably a lot to do with the kind of work we do. A lot of these guys, um, especially people who aren't like 19, and that's the other thing is we no longer do guys who are like, yeah, I'm only going to do this for 6 months or sort of thing. It's just like, no, dude, I want tradesmen. I'm glad that you're going to college. You think that's the way to better your life, but not here.
Yeah.
So go somewhere else. But we hire guys who want to be in construction. So that's a very specific question we ask. Do you want to be in the trades? And we don't call it labor. We don't call it this. We say you want to be in the trades. Do you want to be a waterproofer? You talk to
Mm,
you're being interviewed to be a plumber and electrician, or you meet a plumber or electrician at a bar. You don't ask him what he does. He doesn't say he's in construction. He's like, I'm a plumber,
right.
electrician, because they think it's harder than it is. Just joking. But we've really done the same thing with waterproofing. Hey, you're not a tradesman. You're not a demo guy. Like, you're a waterproofer. So we ask them, do you want to be in the trades? Do you want to be a tradesman? And if they say yes, that's one of the big things. Sorry, I got on a tangent. What was the
Yeah,
question?
no, and then I was just saying, like, when do you start talking about advancement or
Oh, yeah.
benefit perks, all those other things that come along with what you guys do? Is that right up front? Because I'm afraid if you do it right up front, people are going to be like, ooh, seeing dollar signs, like when do you bring that up to them?
Yeah. Sorry. So we've already narrowed down kind of our ideal candidate. And our ideal candidate for this is someone who's been in labor, uh, knows hard work,
Yeah.
very similarly hard work, has low turnover rate in that too. So very big on low turnover rate. I've had guys walk off jobs in like an hour sort of thing. And I'm just like, I knew it. I knew they had too many jobs in the last year. Um,
Right.
so most of the guys who work for us, they left their last job of, about a year. It's usually where I cut it off. I want you somewhere for at least a year, because
Yeah.
it's tough in construction, right?
Sure.
Especially since most construction companies suck to work for. So
Yeah.
now you have this. So now you have this guy who's already made it that far, who really is just trying to take care of his family, likes construction enough, and knows he can make money doing it, and wants to just stop job hopping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I talk about benefits and raises right away, and it's actually even in the job posting.
Okay.
But the way we have it structured is, first off, I pay way more than our competitors, like way more. And but it takes a while to get the top pay, but you get a lot of raises at first. So you
Okay.
start pretty low, and then you're getting raises, big time raises. And
Okay.
the first the first couple are like, you better not show up late, or you better not call no call, no show. That's just that
Right.
those are just givens.
Yeah.
But and then after that, it's heavily based on culture.
Yeah.
Like, are the guys are the guys vibing with you? Is everything good? And you can't do that if you have like some douchebag who like thinks like hazing and like being a jerk is okay, right? The
Right.
only reason I can do that is
Yeah.
because people are cool here. They're nice. They
Yeah.
like want you to succeed.
Right. Right.
So it's like, so I know if Ian or Al or one of these other guys says like, yeah, man, I don't know, dude, he's this or that. I'm like, sweet. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I need to hear. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you got that's cool that you empower them that way, and it's not just your ego of like, no, I hired that guy. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. You got to listen to the guys that are spending 8 hours at a house digging a hole,
Well,
right?
they're my golden goose.
Yeah,
Like, these are the guys who've been digging holes for 3 years, and like these are the kind of guys. So you're not necessarily asking everyone, but you are asking the guy that if he left, you'd be devastated, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so we've even talked about, it's probably a little too much, but my production director was like, "Hey, should we have the job leads be part of the interview?" I'm like, "Yeah, like that's not." But it's like, it is that important. I get where he's coming from.
Yeah,
It's that important.
yeah. No,
Uh,
that makes sense.
but in regards to, like I said, they make good money. Uh, they have health insurance that I pay most of it.
Yeah.
Um, they get bonuses based off of reviews, like Google reviews.
Okay.
If the customer, but I don't make it so like, oh, that customer just has to leave a Google review. They have to leave a Google review and mention their name,
Uh,
and I give them a script, essentially, like kind of empower them on how to do it. And
sure.
then Build 12 is set up to auto do it. So like you set
Yeah.
them up for success.
Yeah.
And it's like, and guess what? That works with the marketing. And
Right.
now you go to our Google page and it's like, oh, Fernando, oh, Al, all these guys, they were so good. And that goes so much further than just being like, oh, service is great.
Yeah.
Or, and I started doing that. That kind of fell in my lap. It was because all the reviews, when I was doing everything, all the reviews were like, oh, Dylan this, Dylan that. I'm like, dude, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, you guys get reviews. You mention their name, I'll give you $50.
Yeah.
And then it got so big, it was like, all right, you do this, you do that. Now they have tiers. So now they get over a certain amount. Like there's guys
Yeah.
getting like $300 an extra day of bonuses per
Nice.
paycheck.
Nice. Nice. That's cool. What about like long-term perks? So, obviously they have insurance, they're getting paid well, they're getting, you know, uh, they're getting frequently bumped up in pay.
Yeah,
They're there, right?
yeah.
When do they feel like when do you feel when do they feel like they're part of the team? Like these people aren't leaving unless something they're moving out of state. You know what I mean? Like is there a feeling or is there a moment?
Yeah, it's something that we constantly ask. I bet you if you ask my production director, like, what's the first thing I ask when I call for updates, on the job sites and stuff? Because he's managing all the job sites, all the crews. It's the only thing I ask is like, hey, how's like the schedule, whatever. That's
Right, right.
we've got that dialed. It's like, hey, like, how's the mood? Like, how's everyone doing? Every single day, probably too much. So we really squash it pretty quickly. These like little embers sort of thing. If you're on it, you're
Yeah.
talking to people every day, which I do. You can get ahead of it.
Mm.
I had a guy where I was, and it wasn't even spying, but I have cameras on our yard, and I was watching it once, and I'm like, dude, I feel like he's been sitting there for a while. And I watched it again, watch again. Oh, he's milking the clock, and
Uh,
it was like, and for me, all right, you're making good money. I feel like you trust me, this and that. So like, why you're stealing from me? Why are you
right,
stealing from me? Right. And
right.
I was actually out of town when this happened, when I realized it, and I couldn't sleep. I called him like in the
Yeah,
middle, walking into dinner. I call him. I'm like, hey man, we got to talk. I just asked him like, hey man, what's up? Like, I feel like you're not happy. I feel like there's something going on, and I don't know why. And he was like, yeah, I've been meaning, I know, I'm sorry. And guess what? He goes to the church, and he was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I should have talked to you about this. And he felt like he was like, he was just being impatient, right? He was like, I just don't know if I can see myself here. Like, I just don't want to be doing labor forever. I'm like, bro, you're 22, you're 22 years old.
right.
I'm like way older than you, and I just stopped doing that. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, but like he sees in his head these management positions running out. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, bro, like this is going to be the biggest home service company in 15 years if I
Yeah.
have anything to say about it. Like,
Yeah.
I promise you, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, gosh, man, I haven't given you any direct feedback.
Mm.
I hadn't shown up on your job site. I haven't done any spot checks, nothing on you. So it was my fault. He just felt like, he was just like a cog, and it was, and I had just kind of like neglected him.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that, you're just keeping up on it. And it was like, this was like a big thing, because you have a guy milking the clock, you got a guy with a bad attitude that spreads like a cancer, like
Right.
big time.
Yeah, and so the next point, I guess, would be do you do regular performance reviews? And if not, or like you said, making sure you're in constant communication because, yeah, people have those moments of doubt, right? And if you're not checking in, then they might slip away.
Yeah, with my like management, so my production director specifically for labor, I mean, he's become, so he was my business partner who's
Hmm.
not involved in the day to day. He was his high school best friend, and we didn't grow up together or anything like that. I met him when I hired him.
Hmm.
but we've become super close, and we're good friends now. Or I hope you would say that. Brian, don't hurt my feelings. I'm sensitive. But we talk a lot. Tons of time on the phone.
Yeah.
About baseball, about this, about that, and he knows that that's what I'm asking. So yeah, do I do reviews as often? So he does we do monthly stuff. So we'll do a random spot check. We just started doing this because that conversation I talked to you about, I was like, Brian, we have to figure this out. And getting into the cult and keeping a track on culture, you don't realize it's gone until something like that happens.
Right.
Especially when you're growing. I had gone into one of my dark holes of doing a project while we were doing our website, and it took 3 months of copy and design. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And something gets neglected, and you come out of your cave, and you're like, hey guys, what's up? And you're like, the world's on fire, and you're like, oh no. So yeah, it's I do quarterly with them, and he does monthly, and then every other month. What we used to do when we were smaller, there's this bar in our town, we would have all our meetings there, and I always had an open invite, one Saturday, if you guys want to come. So we try our best not to make it all business. And most of these dudes, a lot of these guys are single. So if they hear on a Saturday afternoon, they can come get a free burger and a pitcher of beer. They're for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Keeping that. Yeah. You got to know who they are as people too. Right. I think I talked to a lot of folks in our industry where, we've grown up. I'm third generation. You grow up with it's my way or the highway. Just come do your job. Nobody really knows what their lives are like. And, you don't even know if they're married. You don't even know if they have kids. You know nothing because you don't care, because it's all about the job and about your performance. And
super common.
And yeah, super common, right? And it's so strange because it's like, no wonder why they just move on to the next job. We've commoditized them, and sure, they should go for more money. So
and it's harder.
People,
it's harder too.
Yeah,
it's more people hear that oh, I don't want to. I'm not interested in spending time with my employees or like that. I'm like, I get it. If I hired that guy, I wouldn't want to spend time with him either.
Yeah.
How about you hire someone you want to be around and just stop being a jerk? It's so it's, some people, I'll try to help friends or talk to other owners or ask for pointers, stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if you have it in yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you're still cursing on job sites.
Yeah, come on, get over it, man.
Yeah, go to you need Jesus, then you can come talk to me. I can't fix you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, man, Dylan, you guys have created a really cool business, and from a fellow peer and contractor, good job, keep it up. I mean, what are some exciting things that Better Basements and Waterproofing is looking forward to in 2025?
Oof. We'll be at World of Concrete next week, so I'm excited to be in Vegas.
Oh yeah, Vegas, nice.
Yeah, so I'm taking Brian, the other owner, and
the one that may or may not like you.
Yeah, I think he likes me, and we had a bet. He owes me $500 on a baccarat hand too. So
nice.
So we got that. We're trying to just cat's out of the bag a little bit. We got certified with ECP Earth Contact Products to do helicals and house lifting. So that's kind of our next. Waterproofing is humming. We have no warranty complaints, no callbacks. It's a well-oiled machine. So it's kind of like, what's the next thing? We really want to get into helicals and lifting. Hopefully, actually commercial. I want to do that for commercial.
Yeah.
That's the next big gorilla, and that's a big thing. I mean, that might even be, it might be another business. Is kind of what we're coming to the realization of.
Yeah.
So, that's our big thing, and also we've been hunting for real estate. Trying to buy a yard for the business because leasing is for suckers.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks again for being here. How do people connect with you if they want to learn more or learn more about your business and connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is all my other stuff is managed by someone else. So LinkedIn is my best way to contact me.
Okay.
or the info ad on our website, info email, they'll forward it on. But
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Dylan.
my pleasure. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Construction Executives Live. We'll see you next month. Hey, if you want, I need to connect with me, Jeremy at US Construction